Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. These were the words that egged me on, day in and day out. After waking up in the middle of the forest with no recognition of what had happened, other than my name and a single phrase, help, sustain, learn, I spent my life searching for my past and fulfilling the phrase. Walking aimlessly through the streets, stealing food and clothes just to survive, I was branded as a thief, a liar. Even though no one knew my situation, they shunned me and condemned me to their sewers. I spent a good amount of my days there, fighting like a madman just to stay alive. As I laid on the cold, damp floor of the sewer passage, drawing my final breaths, I understood my true feelings. I had never once hated or wished for the same fate, for the ones that condemned me. Just then, a bright, almost fluorescent green butterfly landed on my forehead, right as I lost consciousness. When I woke, I was in the same forest I woke up in years before. Looking at my face in a puddle, I was young again. I had been given a second chance to start over the life that I had thrown away. As I stood up, I felt an overwhelming yearning to help those who had condemned me. I knew that they were either too weak or too ignorant to make choices for themselves, and we're all just these hurdles on the inside. Unfortunately, I had no superpowers to help them. However, I was wrong. There was one thing I did have: a brain, and I was prepared to fill it with as much information as possible. I knew I had to start somewhere, so I searched for the greatest wealth of knowledge: libraries. I was no superhero with no powers whatsoever. However, I did have something better than any super strength, flying, or invisibility: knowledge. With every book I read, I could feel myself becoming one step closer to figuring out who I was and helping those who had condemned me. A wealthy man, stuffing himself with imported foods. A scholar, standing far away from the crowd. A young girl, who was constantly dropping the contents from her bag. A revolution activist, who was randomly protesting. And a woman who was happily giving her money away to what seemed like a scammer. They all needed help, whether they knew it or not. They were all in the city, but the city was a massive domain, made by one of the wealthiest men alive. Every day, I searched the city for them. Finally, I found my first target. Carried on a golden carriage, the wealthy man, whom I was told was the king's son, was very easily recognizable. I created a distraction by breaking one of the wheels and throwing down a smoke bomb. In the confusion, I approached the wealthy man, who had jumped out of his carriage to escape the smoke. The people of the city do not believe that you are fit to be the next ruler. They feel like you do not understand how it feels to work for your meals. We had decided that if you can sustain yourself for a whole year using only hydroponics and animals that you raise on your own, you will be worthy to be king. I dropped the paper containing the information and directions for the system on the ground in front of him. Just as fast as I appeared, I left without a trace. The next day, the king's son announced that he would be giving up all of his riches and living off the land to truly be worthy of the throne. The following month was the king's birthday. The city was busier than usual, for the king's birthday was regarded as a holiday. This is where I found my second target. With a tall but awkward stature, the scholar stood away from the crowd of workers preparing food, looking as if he had no part in the work. This was when the madness began. One of the workers tripped with arms full of cooked food, spilling it everywhere, thus making them dangerously behind schedule. With the food behind schedule, and one of the workers hurt, they needed a replacement: the scholar. But instead of agreeing to help, he turned a cold shoulder on them and walked down the nearest alley. Taking action quickly, I intercepted him and persuaded him to give it a try. After a while, he finally agreed to help. Towards the end of the cooking, it actually seemed like he was having fun. Just as fast as I had appeared, I vanished without a trace. Next week, while I was walking through the busy shopping district, just as I had turned the corner, a young boy ran into me and dropped a bag of groceries and a list of ingredients he had to buy. "I'm sorry, sir. I was rushing and I was trying to, The boy kept stumbling over his words countless times. "It's fine," I told him with a smile. "I'm not doing anything at the moment, so would you like some help?" I offered. I figured out that he was the errand boy for the king's son, whom I got to give up his greedy lifestyle. It turns out that the king's son has been upholding his part of the deal. The food was for the king's son's servants, who had now nothing to do, since the king's son was living sustainably. "I still need to get all these vegetables and meat in less than an hour, or I'll be kicked out for sure." Glancing at his list, I saw that he was running back and forth across the shopping area, needlessly wasting time. "You should organize your route before you go out and buy things. If you went here, here, and here, it would save you about an hour or so," I explained to him. We finished the shopping and returned way before the hour. After I handed him the groceries in front of the gate to the king's son's house, he turned around to thank me, but I was already gone. Even though he was not the person I had originally planned to help, it felt like he needed as much help as the person I originally planned to help. Strolling into the area, I saw the revolution activists, as I had anticipated. The same man was protesting against the king. He walked over to me and tried to persuade me to help his cause. "The king is a greedy man that gives nothing to his people. We must kick him off of the throne and find a new ruler." After listening to what he said, I asked him, "What happens after the king is overthrown? Do you think that the next ruler will be any better than the man before him? Everything that they say is just politics. You can never know for sure if they will uphold their cause, or uphold and live by what they say. Sometimes revolutions can lead to worse situations, the complete opposite of what you want." A country that I learned about was in much worse shape than we are now. After overthrowing the rulers, they appointed new rulers, and the country broke out in anarchy. After a long silence, the man looked up, but I was already gone. While on my usual morning stroll, I saw my first target. Unsurprisingly, she was in the middle of getting swindled by another scammer. Walking up to the pair, I asked if I could read the document that she was going to sign. The scammer became flustered and left without making the deal. I told her that the man was trying to scam her. "You must always make sure you read the whole document before signing," I explained. Even though I had been helping others with their problems, I felt like each time I helped, a part of my past came back. Teaching others, in turn, taught myself. Thank you.
Kai, how did you come up with this approach?
Well, I knew that since we were given a plot and that everybody had to follow that plot, I knew pretty much that everybody was going to try and be a superhero and just have it exactly as the plot says. So I figured that if I could kind of make the plot a little bit different to my liking but still keep the general idea, it would make a fresh new approach that would hopefully make mine stand out a little bit, even though it wasn't the most, it wasn't like the craziest or anything like that. I wanted to just approach it differently than others.
I think that was really great and creative. Can you go through really quick and give us like one sentence per each that, because you took like the abstract route, and I think that, creatively that's awesome. But let's just do a recap. So like with each of your 5 things there, just give us one sentence about, the skill that you most completely.
Okay, I'll summarize every paragraph into like a couple sentences.
Okay.
So the first paragraph that I said, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing that it's stupid. Well, I kind of saw that quote a while ago, and I thought that really fitted me because I'm not really fit for the traditional methods of learning. And that was one of the main reasons why I joined MPX, so that's why I started that off with that. And then the next paragraph, how I said the wealthy man who was really stuffing himself and being greedy, that was kind of interpreting that in the beginning of the year for me, I was really being bossy and kind of telling my other group members to do things that I didn't want to do. And then after we actually got our hydroponic system up and running, or I was told, or I saw our finished product, it really made me figure out that I needed to also contribute to the group, because if we all weren't working and weren't all on the same level, we would not succeed. And then the third paragraph, how I was talking about the scholar who was kind of being antisocial. Well, that was kind of me in the start, because I didn't necessarily know my group members in the beginning, so I felt like I had to either be above them or below them and not on the same level. And I kind of was pushing away from the group, but then actually this one was how I said I intercepted the scholar in the alleyway. That was kind of how I met with, or when I met with you and Mr. Kaneko with my parents, and we talked about like everything that was happening. So I used that. And then the revolution activist, there wasn't really a specific thing that, like, I guess, like it wasn't really trying to, I didn't really have any inspiration for that one. It was kind of just a made-up character. And then I used how we figured out that after the revolution, the first revolution for Russia, how it didn't really go as they planned, because the people who took over eventually took over by worse people, and then it just got all screwed up. And then the final one, how it was, actually I skipped one. The young boy who was trying to rush and get everything like that, that was definitely representing me, because I always take the hardest approach possible for some dumb reason, I don't know why. And how I, in the book, or in the story, was telling the young boy that he should just not be going from one side to the other. That was kind of interpreting that I usually go all around when I'm doing homework, like switching over subjects and not finishing stuff. And that was kind of interpreting that I should stay with one subject and finish something and then go on to the next thing. And then the final paragraph was about the lady who was being scammed, and that was interpreting that for our cooking directions, a lot of times I didn't look over the whole thing before I started cooking.